Hi, my name is Kate. My master's research focused on exploring the patient experience of an outpatient intravenous antibiotic service offered by the Watermanor DHB. Essentially, it's a service which allows patients to go home and receive antibiotic treatment in their own home rather than receive that treatment for a long period in a hospital setting. So I came in and explored how, with the involvement of patients and clinicians, I could improve the usability and the accessibility of that service to create a system of products that patients could use to have a more enjoyable and easier treatment process. The existing OPIVA service largely consisted of a hard-shelled elastomeric infuser, which is a device which uses essentially a balloon which constricts over time, delivering antibiotics over a 24-hour period. Think not too dissimilar from a baby bottle. And this was stored in a blue bum bag that the patients would wear through day-to-day activities, and this would feed through an IV line into a PICC line located in their upper arm. And although the treatment works really well and provides effective treatment, it is difficult and cumbersome to use. People have to wear the waste bag on the outside of their clothing, which can be a bit annoying for day-to-day activities, not to mention somewhat socially uncomfortable. So for me, it was a case of coming in and figuring out what elements of that were really difficult for people. And although some people were uncomfortable around the bag, one of the things that was really problematic was that the IV lines which were attached to the patient's arm had to be held in place with tape. And managing that tape was really frustrating for a lot of people, not to mention for people who had arthritis or limited mobility. They essentially couldn't manage that tape and had to get either a family member or a district nurse to come in and do that infuser changes and managing the tape and everything for them, which was obviously frustrating and costing a lot of money. So kind of the first area that I developed was an alternative to the current waste bag. So I wanted to design a bag and infuser combo that could be worn comfortably underneath the clothing. So to do that, I designed a bag which was made of neoprene, which provided some padding and insulation for the bottle, whilst keeping it low profile enough to be worn easily under the clothing. Carrying on from that, the infuser I designed went from the very sort of circular baby bottles style of design that the current infuser uses and created a sort of much more low profile and ergonomically shaped infuser that can be worn more comfortably against the user's skin and under the clothing. To help deal with the taping, the biggest change to the existing service that I designed was this, which is essentially an IV clip. So rather than having to tape the IV lines on and off the patient's arm every day during the infuser changes, this system simply allows patients to unhook the IV line and slide out the infuser, which would be attached onto here. And then once the infuser change has been done, the system simply slides back into place and the IV line can be clipped back onto the clip. This makes the system more accessible because no one is having to worry about dealing with tape on and off their arms, and it's easy to manage with one hand. It is really simple and intuitive to use. I think one of the things I struggled most with during the process of doing this research was managing the ethical concerns that come with research and then participant recruitment. So obviously for the first part of the research, I had to create an ethics proposal and submit that to the AUT Ethics Committee. And before I could recruit participants. So for me, that was a really good learning opportunity, but it was really different to what I'd done in my undergrad. And I think it really made me think critically about my own research protocols and how I would interact with participants, and that was something I hadn't really done before, and that was a really great learning opportunity, if a difficult process for me to figure out. Throughout this research, there have been a huge number of learning opportunities for me. I think not only learning about myself and my own experiences and processes as a designer, but also learning about the ways that patients interact with products. I think although the end goal of this research was demonstrating a process in which human-centered design could improve the accessibility and usability of products, in a medical setting. The biggest learning for me was just the fact that really the way that patients interact with medical products is often so different to the way you would expect them to interact with them. Because essentially we're giving uneducated people really highly technical medical products and expecting them to manage that themselves for a really long period of time. And I think that's a really interesting area of learning that there isn't really enough research in at the moment. The growth that you experience as a person, as a designer, is huge. You experience such an in-depth process that you don't ever get in undergrad, spending essentially 18 months diving into one specific research area. You learn so much about that area, but you learn about yourself at the same time. I've grown so much as a designer. I have new design tools which I use regularly. My ability to do academic writing, but also, talk to patients and, manage stakeholders has kind of gone from almost like a theoretical point of view where I knew approximately how to do it to actually a point, where I can go into a hospital setting, I can talk to clinicians and I can, manage their experience and include those in the design process. And I don't think that was a skill I had coming out of my undergraduate degree. I think coming through this project, the biggest highlight honestly was actually the end of the project when I was able to take the product back to the clinicians and hospital staff and patients who I'd spoken to and kind of show them not just like an academic outcome for their involvement in my research, but also like a really tangible product outcome, and seeing their excitement over the potential for what the service could be. And that was really incredible.